You're listening to Linda Pinizzato at the Hayes FM, and I'm speaking to you about condominiums. This show is called The Condo Expert. We touched on financials. Now, what about a lack of communication? You know, communication is a real tough one. You know, I think that during the voting process, maybe the board, you know, people that want to gain your vote on a board of directors may very well see you and open up communication. But do they continue doing that after they've already been elected and they now are on the board? So communication is vitally important. If you're in a position where you're sending in requests for, you know, maybe minutes of meetings or materials relating to the condo corporation, and you're not receiving them back, obviously there's a communication breakdown. And I think that you'd also have to wonder, why aren't you receiving that back? Because really, if somebody has taken on a volunteer job, it doesn't matter whether or not it's a coach for a hockey team or any of the nonprofit associations that we have province-wide. If someone's got a question, it's very easy for them to say, yeah, what did you want to know? And tell them, give them an answer. So if somebody is not giving you an answer, yet they've taken this responsibility to work in your best interest or the corporation's best interest, you've got to wonder why. You really seriously do, because it's not like it should be any degree of secret. You're all owners together. You know, sometimes I think if there's a conflict of interest of some sort, you're going to find that they'll shy away. You know, I think that in my business, I'm a realtor, and, you know, a lot of my successes, to be quite honest with you, deal with the fact that when I'm meeting somebody, I have to really, you know, especially if there's somebody that I don't know and they're calling me just out of the blue, within the first 5 to 10 seconds, I really need to figure out where they're coming from and see whether or not I feel a comfort level of trust. And, you know, the longer you're in the business, and it doesn't matter what kind of business you are, you know, we have our sixth sense, you know, and we have to go with that. So I think that if I was involved with any condo corporation and all of a sudden I had this kind of a behavior, that automatically, for me, would put off warning signals, without a doubt. You know, recently, I know that there's a lot of conversation going on right now downtown Toronto with relation to the casino. And the only reason I'm touching this, I know everybody out there is thinking I'm doing about face. I'm not doing an about face here. I am not. There was deputations, actually. I was scheduled to have a deputation at the City of Toronto with respect to whether it's pro or against, you know, in favor or against the casino. The interesting part about this whole topic is, speaking in the condo light, is that if that is in the entertainment district in downtown Toronto, that entertainment district is slowly disappearing. And although a lot of people may not want to admit it, but casinos are entertainment. And I guess the question is if a casino is not going to be built, then what is going to end up happening? Because right now we have a landscape of condominiums in Trinity Spadina down in the entertainment district that is almost like a suburbia in the downtown core. Way too much high-density condominiums in that immediate location. People need venues. They want venues. That was one of the reasons why they moved there. So, you know, I'm not going to get into whether or not we're in favor or we're not in favor of the casino. We're more concerned, to be quite honest with you, as to if a casino is not going to be approved, then what will be? Are we talking about another condo that's going to be way above the natural height restrictions? We've always got major traffic congestion in the downtown core, and we're slowly losing sight of the beautiful venues that are down there. So I think that, you know, not only should the people that are out there say no, 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 maybe what they need to do is say no, but this is what I would suggest. Otherwise, we're just going to end up with more residential condos in that whole corridor. And right now, although last week I understand that the builders have actually are looking at slowing things down somewhat right now because they do have a large amount of inventory. And there's question as to where the direction of the condominiums are going right now, like in the marketplace. So we certainly are in a very interesting time right now. I'm finding that I don't see a huge difference as far as the sale of homes, but we do have a fair amount of inventory on condominiums. But also there's going to be a lot of condominiums that have gone through their occupancy and registration. And the question is are they going to be hitting the market as a rental property? Or are they going to hit the market because the investor doesn't want to hold on to the property and they want to get it sold? So we'll be knowing that. Generally speaking, once a building is occupied and goes into registration, within about 2 weeks after that building has registered, we actually start to then get an idea on what the present value is of those condo units. And I guess with the present value, then it would help people make their mind up as to whether or not they want to become a long-term landlord or whether or not they want to just sell it and move forward. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction that goes in. But, I think that one of the key things about today is, if I look at all of the last 4 weeks of discussions and covering everything that I did, I think that it would really give everyone listening an excellent idea about condominiums. I know that there's still some seminars in and about, and it takes time. It's not like you're going to learn this tomorrow. It's a very, very complicated issue. And there's so many different types of things that come forward all the time. You think when you've heard it all, I all of a sudden find out another thing that I'm shocked about. Like there was actually a building out in Burlington. And the interesting thing about that is that the building, part of it was a 3-part ownership. 1 was unit owners, 2 was investors, and 3 was actually the developer. He kept some suites. And what they did is that the second phase within that complex now has gone for approval, and the developer is now trying to work with nonprofit housing groups so that he can create a much different structure than the normal condominium type of unit to pretty much provide affordable housing. Now, there's a lot of restrictions and guidelines with relation to his approval, but the interesting part is that nowhere along the way were the owners in the present building, which is the first phase of this 2-phase site, were they notified? They weren't notified. So there's 2 elements to where things are at right now. One element would, of course, be the municipalities. So I would have to give a forewarn. If anybody out there, if you own a condominium anywhere in the province of Ontario, and when you bought it, you realized that there was going to be a second or potentially a third phase, but you didn't really have a lot of information, but you did like what you saw and you decided to move forward. Rather than just putting it aside and saying, fine, forget it, because your project is not completed in a whole, like all your phases, pay attention to what's going on with the second phase or the third phase or however it would be. If that means registering yourself with the planning department in your local city, do it. And that's no different from a single family home. I mean, if you live in a single family home and you've got a big spaced area across the street from you that you were expecting to be a park, and now you're seeing huge cranes go on that land and they're digging, you're gonna contact the city because you're gonna want to find out, why are they digging? You thought this was a park. You bought your property believing that it would be a park, and now all of a sudden it's not a park. But you haven't been paying attention to your committee of adjustments. You haven't been paying attention to notices that have come in the mail. And now you see these cranes. So all I can say to you is that in a condo corporation, it's no different. If there's more than one phase, it means that there's going to be a second level of development. And yes, things can change. It depends on what is in the documents of your first phase. So things can change. So what you need to do is stay on top of your next phases so that what you think you bought is going to be what you bought. Life changes all the time. Needs change. Is there a reason why a developer would change it all of a sudden? Sure, because affordable housing came into the picture and it might be a really good revenue source or structure that's in his best interest, and he's decided that this would be a lot more viable than building a second condominium building open to the general public. And he is satisfying a need. I mean, we do need affordable housing. And I did talk about this last week, but the part I didn't talk about was creating awareness for yourself on second or third phases in complexes or areas that you've purchased where you know there's going to be other phases coming in, and you do need to be protecting yourself on those other phases. You are listening to Linda Pinizzotto at the Condo Expert here at the station at the Hayes FM. I will be right back, so please stay tuned.